A Secchi disc is an 8-inch or 20-centimeter disc with alternating black and white sections that is usually attached to a rope or a tape measure. It was created in 1865 by a man named Angelo Secchi to measure the transparency of water, also known as water clarity. Transparency of water relates to the depth that light will penetrate water. The transmission of light into a body of water is extremely important since the sun is the primary source of energy here on Earth. Light is necessary for photosynthesis, a process that produces oxygen and food for consumers. Transparency can be affected by the color of the water, algae, and suspended sediments such as rocks, plants, and dirt. Transparency decreases as color, suspended sediments, and algal abundance increases. The Secchi disc can be lowered into any body of water such as a lake or a pond until it can no longer be seen by the observer. This depth of disappearance, called the Secchi depth, is a measure of the transparency of the water. Keep 2 hands in the Secchi disc and tape measure. Since it is weighted, we don't want it to sink to the bottom of the lake. Transparency is an indicator of the impact of human activity on the land surrounding the lake. If transparency is measured through the season and from year to year, trends in transparency may be observed. Transparency can serve as an early warning that activities on the land are having an effect on the lake. In order to read a Secchi disc, you lower it until it completely disappears. Then, slowly retrieve the disc. As soon as you can make out the faint black and white markings, stop. Mark the tape at the surface of the water to record the depth to the nearest centimeter.
So when you're taking your Secchi depth measurement, the key fact is that you're going to be recording in metrics. And it's also important to understand how to read the metric system on a tape measure such as this. So here's an example. Let's say hypothetically our reading came back at this specific point right here. The way that you read it is that you look for the first big, huge red number right before. And so on this marking right now, it says 5 meters. Just as a refresher, there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter. So right here, we're automatically at 500 centimeters. Then you keep on reading, you're going to see larger black numbers. So a 10, a 20, and then smaller numbers. So where my finger is at right here, it's going to be 500 plus 20 centimeters, so 520 plus 7 for 527 centimeters, which would be our Secchi depth reading for today.
Do your best to make sure the Secchi disc sinks vertically to give you a more precise reading.
And last but not least, always take 2 readings and then average them together to get your final measurement.
While we were out in the Melisire today, we used a Secchi disc to measure water clarity. To understand how far we were able to see in the water column, we've laid out this Secchi disc attached to the meter tape. And so this is 5.5 meters. This is as far as one of the readings that we had today. My colleague Nate is standing in the center. Nate has a wingspan of 2 meters or 6 feet for reference. So looking at this is how far we were able to see into the water column.
Some tips and tricks as you're taking your Secchi depth measurement is to make sure before that you lean over the edge that you remove any sunglasses that you might have, especially if they're polarized, because that might change the way that you read the readings, as well as you don't want to lose your sunglasses at the bottom of the lake. The same with your hat. Not only does it help take a more accurate reading, but again, you don't want that hat sinking to the bottom. So you're also going to want to take into consideration the wind direction, and so you can see that the wind is facing in this direction. My hair is actually blowing in that direction. And when you're taking your reading, just make sure to drop the Secchi disc off the side where the wind is to your back. That way it doesn't get caught underneath the boat as you're taking your readings.
Secchi discs are commonly used because they're relatively inexpensive.
However, there are some risk of inaccuracies, such as weather conditions if it's cloudy, super sunny, etc. But also you have to take into account who's taking the measurement. A person's height or their eyesight does increase risk of inaccuracies.